should put it on our website more prominently. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Bill?
Inspired by both of those, it makes me notice that there are sort of two contradictory courses of action when we ask about what it is to be a tiny little special district. Because on the one hand, the nature of being a small thing is that larger fish are always trying to eat you up or give you unfunded mandates or do other things which are basically stupid and unfair in all kinds of ways. And we're just finishing up the whole election thing in which we have to redistrict and we have to use jigsaw pieces which are all the wrong shape. So there's a whole bunch of stupidity being rained down and power grabs being rained down. There are two kinds of things to do. You mentioned the thing in which we follow the rules extra good and we get all the certificates and we prove to everybody we're following the rules set down by the big bad guys who want to destroy us. Well, following the rules set down by our architectural enemies is only half the answer. The other half is going back to our Montara roots of being courageous and bold and pointing out why tiny, spunky little districts ought to exist. I want to do both of them.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
One more thing, Scott, if you don't mind.
As long as it's not on the agenda.
It's not. It's a suggestion, and you guys can toss it around and put it on an agenda if you want. But I think it might benefit us to let our ratepayers know how much we've already paid on our water bond acquisition bond and how much more we have to go. I think it's something that we should keep track of and let the public know that we've invested in ourselves to X amount of dollars.
Yep.
And we have been doing that actually, particularly with the outreach for the rate increases, meaning in the past 3 years, we did send messaging to everyone, and that was part of the messaging for any rate increase in that context. So it's been going out in the newsletters, that information at least once a year.
I guess, like, I'm thinking maybe this is just a spitballing, thinking on the website to have like one of those little thermometers where they have for fundraising and you've reached your goal.
Nice.
And each month it's, the thermometer, we're paying down the thing, but we have a higher percentage of ownership of our water. It's being paid off. So that was what I was envisioning, not something you have to read and dig through the weeds to find. Not that I always read that the Prop 218 notices, and they're very well written. So don't get me wrong, but I don't think everybody follows things that carefully.
We get put that information in newsletters and not the Prop 218 notice.
Oh, okay. Newsletters then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
let's thank you for the suggestion. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, yes, Peter?
I wanted to pull the monthly water production report. I noticed, and Clemens and I talked about this earlier, I noticed that in the annual water production 2023, there was this large draw from our North Airport well with 178,000 gallons in the month of June, going back again to 1,900 gallons in the month of July. And since I've looked at the other numbers for all of the month, it kind of, the 178,000 kind of stands out. And I wanted to know what that was all about.
Yeah, so I mean, what you're seeing is essentially the well is not pumped. Okay? You see the same at the airport well, number 3. These wells are not pumped because we're prioritizing the actually much better quality water from Montara Mountain. So that's the reason why you see them completely flat. So what you see, the 178,000 is not a lot of water. This is just the well pumping for a day or so. Same with the airport well number 3 over there. You see the 280. It's on for a number of days. And that has to do with operational situations. Let's say, for example, if we have to take the treatment plant out of service for a time, or we do other service on the Alta Vista well, where now we need to substitute that water. The other thing that I'm looking at is, of course, hold on, where's this overall summary? Because June is a higher, I would expect that we use a little more water in June. So you see it was over 8 million gallons that were pumped. So that's another scenario. And that is a high demand scenario where we then turn the airport wells on. But what you're really seeing is you're seeing that these wells are not producing any water except for sampling purposes or operational needs. And I'd have to look at what days they ran and what the reason was. But it's mainly sampling. That's one of the scenarios.
Okay.
So I had just a very slight change to the minutes, but I don't know if we have to pull it to do that.
That's fine.
Typographical, or is it material?
It's typographical in one instance, and then just a little bit of a clarification on the other. For 8.3, on page 8, she said I attended the CDRS meeting, and it was Coastside Design Review, so that's CDRC committee meeting. And then I wrote, I think I said that it's 14 miles to the shopping center, not to a market, because there is a little market in Moss Beach. So that's the clarification.
Okay.
It's minor.
All right, let's note those clarifications and
And
we
you don't
can
have to call it.
approve with
Yep. Thank
those
you.
notes. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the?
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so thank you, Peter and Catherine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Let's go to new business. Item 1, review and action concerning application for funding for FEMA declared disasters, universal resolution for sewer authority mid-coast side. Comments?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So everybody will probably remember the process that we went through about a year ago, participating in the Sanitary County Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, LHMP. We knew at that time when we started to become part of this group that essentially has it's essentially a group that was formed to be able to get better access to grant funding. And we knew that the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side, since they're not a special district or a city, were not able to participate directly in the LHMP. We actually made sure that SAM can apply under Montara Water and Sanitary District if that should arise, and that is currently the case. So SAM is asking for funds that is through Cal OES, and to do so, the district was required to pass a resolution. And it's a universal resolution that is essentially prepared by Cal OES. We have to watch out how it's signed if it gets approved. But our staff recommendation will be to approve the resolution designation of applicants agent resolution for non-state agencies universal resolution. Tanya helped us, our water engineer helped us through the LHMP process, and she's also working with Sam currently on the applications and has helped to bring this resolution to us. So Tanya, there's probably more information that the board could benefit from, but our recommendation is to adopt the resolution. Tanya, what did I leave out?
I don't think you have left anything else out, Clemens, but the gist of it is we applied for an annex to the county's LHMP, which is the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. The district is eligible. We have offered the Granada Community Services District to apply as well. They said that they had no resources to apply. And the reason we offered that was to support SAM, really. But this is also to support the district should any disaster befall us. So it's a good thing, and we have been doing this annex for the district. So you know, for the past 15 years, the LHMP renews every 5 years, and we have been participating every time. And so GCCSD declined, and I think Half Moon Bay was doing their own thing. And so MWSD has been supporting SAM in these applications. It behooves us, right? Because it's grant money. I was just hearing this morning that another district won $24 million in grant money from the feds. So this could be potentially as a very, very good win for all member agencies, but MWSD as well. And FEMA and the California Office of Emergency Services does not even talk to SAM without talking to Clemens. So Clemens MWSD is the main applicant. That's how we were able to submit the grant applications. We're hoping that we will win. Of course, there's no guarantee, but if we don't try, we'll never get anything. So hoping that the board will consider this.
I'd like to make.
I see a bunch of hands. I'm going to start with Greg. Greg?
Well, I obviously support this effort. I just want to amplify what Tanya is saying and thank her and the district for her effort. I ran around 2 years ago, I think it was, trying to get all the local agencies to apply for this stuff because, you know, it's reasonable in our tsunami, earthquake, you know, flood, sea level rise, wildfire area to expect a disaster now and again. And I can clearly recall one other special district director saying, nah, waste of time and money. You fill out all this paperwork, you'll never get anything. So, you know, kudos to MWSD for putting in the time and effort. And I think we're going to hear, hopefully sooner or later from Kishan, what we're ending up getting from FEMA because you guys did your homework. So I do appreciate that. Yeah, and congratulations.
It's if I may say so, it's a lot of work for your staff. Clemens is doing a lot of work that is extra, but we all realize that it's worth it because if we don't try, we will never win anything. But the win, it could be really big. So your staff is putting in effort.
Thank you both.
My hand was up after theirs.
Yeah, I'm going to go around the table in this direction. So, Catherine,
Okay.
starting with you.
I went to the FEMA, as chair of SAM, I went to the FEMA workshop that they had for SAM a couple of months ago. And they were very, very congratulatory as to the excellence of the paperwork that had been submitted by SAM and all the detailed records that were kept. They were very impressed, and I think we will be seeing some results of this. I think this is an instance, Bill, where we are the little guy, and we're picking up the load. But as we all know, in any kind of organization, about 2% of the group, the minority of the group, does all the work. So that would be MWSD. And I would like to make the motion that we approve this, but I'll wait on that. I just think this is as Greg just said. We live in a hazard-prone area. It's silly not to do the paperwork. It's it's like insurance. And so thank you to SRT, thank you to Clemens, thank you to all our staff who does all the work to keep this going. And I'm glad we're doing it. Thank you.
Okay, Bill.
This seems to me like such a drop dead obvious example of doing what we're good at. We can be smart, we can be nimble, we can deal with attorneys and laws, and we can help out organizations which are kneecapped in ways differently than us. So this seems to me so incredibly obvious that we should approve it that I'm not sure what else I need to hear before just voting yes.
Okay, that's it.
I was just going to ask Clemens for clarification on what is covered, because if we already had some issues at the SAM plant and we already had, claims into FEMA, is this just going to cover future events that we won't have to ask permission every single time? It's like if there was a wildfire mitigation we needed to do, we could tap the LHMP money. Or I'm like a little.
I'm going to let Tanya or Kishan answer that,
Okay.
but it's particularly the events we saw last winter.
If I may, it's a very good question. Thank you, Director Young. The FEMA has two parts of reimbursement. One is reimbursement for the event that is federally recognized as a major storm event, like the December 31st of last year. For that, you get direct reimbursement and you apply directly. So that's not included. However, what's included in this is a specific project. It's a suite of specific projects. No, the fire is not included. It's a flood that's included. It's a real hazard. If you recall, the last year event, the Persis Creek flooded the plant, and it was not the SAM staff prevented the disaster from completely overwhelming the plant through their hard work and ingenuity and all that. But we do need to do some capital improvements to actually prevent this from damaging the plant in the future, and that's grant is specifically a request for that. So it's a specific project. It's not a blanket approval. FEMA doesn't do that, unfortunately.
Okay, Peter.
Do I remember correctly, Tanya, that we had a grant pending for Pillar Ridge?
Yes, that didn't work out, unfortunately, for us. We didn't get that grant. Thank you, Director Decker, for asking. This was a completely different. It was a state program, and we were number 67 on the list. We still are. It's just we're proceeding with the design, and we'll bring it to the board when the general manager approves the design, and your staff approves the design, because we can't wait any longer. We need to rehabilitate the plant, and it's in the CIP. But so it's a completely different program, not a hazard mitigation program.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Just one more comment. At Coastal Commission meeting yesterday, there was a report on the likelihood of an El Nino on California for this coming winter, and it is now on Coastside Buzz for those who would like to find it easily. And there's about a 66% chance of some serious storm activity on the coast. So this clearly will work. And Keishan, correct me, but you were saying the FEMA money may be able to be used for raising the electrical portion of the SAM plant so that we will have a safer plant system.
Correct. If I may clarify, that's what it is. That's what it is. Answering Director Young's question on the projects. The specific project, what we are taking up right now on the local hazard mitigation grant program is relocating or moving the electrical building to a location which is less prone to flooding. Right now, the electrical building is at a very high risk location where it could get flooded, and parts of it had got flooded during the winter storm. Some of you who would have come and visited the plant can see the markings, which is pretty close to the electrical panel, and we were lucky that the entire thing did not blow away completely. So this grant application is specifically for relocating the electrical building to a safer location.
Bill?
Just a momentary thing. About a week ago, the desert festival called Burning Man got flooded. And apparently the one death that I heard about was somebody who was dealing with a generator and his feet were in the water and was electrocuted, which is utterly understandable. When I toured the SAM plant the first time last November or thereabouts, I think before I took office, I remember seeing, a 500 kilowatt generator, maybe a vertical 8 inches above where water might pool up. And what I'm realizing now is I would hate for any of us to have the death of a SAM plant worker on our hands. Whether the SAM thing works at pumping sewage this way and that is one important question. But if our current safety arrangement leads to somebody who's working for us dying, that would be very, very terrible. And I want to put my vote in towards preventing that to whatever degree our financial and infrastructure allows. But that's pretty much all I got.
All right. That's it.
I second that because I think there's nothing more important than the safety of the workers at SAM.
All right. Very good. Can we have a motion?
I move that we adopt this.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine and Peter. What we're doing is adopting a resolution, designation of applicants agent resolution for non-state agencies, universal resolution. I'm going to just reiterate something Clemens said. I believe we're going to ask Tracy to be one of the signers on this because they have very specific signature requirements so that we don't self-certify according to their definitions. So I thought that's worth calling out. With that said, let's take a roll call vote. Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Slater-Carter?
Yes.
Director Softy?
Yes.
Director Young?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Motion passes. Resolution is adopted 5-0. Thank you. Top of the agenda here. Let's go to the next item. And thank you, Tanya and Clemens and everyone who's been working on this. Thank you, Keishan. I know everybody has their hand in doing their part and really appreciate the preparedness. Now's the time to be doing it. And this won't be the time for glory, but should we need it, it will be awfully good that you have all done this work. So thank you all. New business 2, review and possible action concerning Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side fiscal year 23-24 budget amendment. Clemens?
Thank you, Scott. So unfortunately, after this very positive item that we had, I'm going to say the SAM budget this year is a mess. This is not the first time we're looking at the SAM budget. We actually received in August now an amendment request. SAM is asking for an additional $1.365 million. That's to the current fiscal year. Our share is $67,000 in some sense. So of that total amount that SAM is asking for, SAM will use $35,000 to pay essentially for changes to the ERF lawsuit settlement that were negotiated. So we knew that this was coming. And the remaining $1.3 million is essentially to supplement the Princeton Pump Station Rehabilitation Project that was approved already in the prior year at $1.2 million. But the project is, there's more work to do and it is more expensive than anticipated with the original estimate. And so that is really the action that we have in front of us. So far this year, we actually saw in May already the 23-24 budget. That was then approved on June 1, 2023. By this board, it was approved. But the initial budget that was sent out in May was not approved by the SAM board on June 27 because Half Moon Bay refused to consent. And the reason for that is that Half Moon Bay only consents if the Montara Force Main project was removed. So consequently, SAM removed the Montara Force Main project. And I want to point out here that SAM has no choice but to remove it because the city is in full control of the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast site. They have 50% of votes, and that means essentially it's a veto right to any decision as a single party. Essentially, the city is running the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast site. There's no decision that goes without the city. And so now the Montara Force Main project was removed and recirculated. I'm going to say the Montara Force Main project is actually a project that is required to be or was required to be completed. So we went back to the ERF group, renegotiated that. That's what $35,000 is for here. And so we then approved the revised SAM budget that removed the force main. SAM board authorized now this amendment and has distributed it. And now we're really, again, in the situation where ultimately the city is requesting that we sign the stipulation. Essentially, that was the issue at the first time. So I'm just going to point out here that the city is in full control and lets SAM get stuck in the sand with every single project. So every single project is brought to the SAM board, is perfectly handled by staff, and then any IPS project is shut down by the city. So the city is in full control of the pipeline, of the IPS, but is essentially refusing to consent to pay its share. We recommend here the adoption of the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District consenting to the approval by the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast site of an amendment to its general budget because we want this project to be done. This project has been planned for, as far as I know, 20 years. And the Princeton Pump Station, we just heard Director Bill and Director Softy and Director Young mention that the death of a SAM worker would be pretty much the worst thing that we can see. And that is what we're talking about. This is a safety issue, the pump station, and this has been known since a very, very long time. So I think I'm just going to point to everybody who is interfering with this project and who is saying that this project is not needed, is interfering with the safety of the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast site staff. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting back. The recommendation is to approve the the amendment to the general budget for the fiscal year 23-24. And before I hand it back to the board, I wanted to thank Keishan for being here in case there's any questions.
Thank you, Clemens. Let's start this way, and we're going to go all the way around, and I'll do the final comment.
This might be a Keishan question, but it also might be Clemens. You mentioned that it's more expensive than the original estimate. And I did, even though I was out of town, I watched the video of the SAM meeting after the fact. And it kind of made me think that there were some items that were left out and there was a cost increase. But that's not what this is that we're voting on now, to increase the budget to cover like the inflation of the estimate for the Princeton pump station, et cetera?
I'm going to let Keishan answer that question, but inflation is definitely going to be a part because Keishan's going to explain where the $1.2 million number comes from. It's an estimate from some essentially year and a half plus back. That is when we had 23% cost increases in construction that one single year. And so it continued. So yes, we're seeing significant cost increases on construction side. But Kishan, maybe you can go a little more in detail and answer the question.
Sure. Thank you very much, Clemens. When we budgeted for this about a year and a half, of course, as Clemens rightly said, we budgeted for about 1.25 million. Subsequent to that, we did a geotechnical study, investigation was done, and we found out that the site where the present pump station is prone for liquefaction and seismic fault rupture and other issues. So then we began investigating on that, and then we decided to increase the scope of the project. So a lot of new things got added to that subsequently. So that, in addition to the inflation, the cost increase over a period of time, is requiring us to go for a budget amendment. Did it answer your question, Director?
There was something in here that it looked like it went up quite a big, substantial amount on the change from the adopted thing. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nearsighted, so.
Yeah, so I can explain to you more in detail. The lot of elements which got added, like for example, the control panels, we had to relocate it from the existing location to a different location to take care of the geotech study. That was the one. Then we wanted to do a lot of electrical improvements, and the best time was to do this when we are when we are redoing the complete Princeton pump station. So all put together, we increased the scope, the original scope, and that was the thing which resulted in the increase.
Okay, I remember sort of, I was tired, so I don't know if I heard it correctly, but it seemed like Director Dye was saying that when you did the estimate, you left out some critical parts that still are part of the project, and those have to be included. Is that what this is that we're voting on?
No, it did not get left out. It was just a study was done later on, and then these things got added.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, Billy, I'm good. You good? Catherine?
I'd like to say that if folks are interested, to please watch the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting from last Tuesday, starting at about 1 hour and 39 minutes in and lasting for about 11 or 12 minutes. There was a letter submitted by the attorney for Sam, and Jeremy Youngrice, the attorney for Sam, and Keishan both spoke, and they spoke at night after putting in a long day's hard work, and I really appreciate them, their dedication to Sam. And there were serious errors in the city's staff report. The city did not mention the ERF settlement. They sort of acted like this was, oh, well, Sam just wants to do this project. They didn't talk about the fact that this has to be done by mid next year. They didn't talk about, they had agreed to it when they agreed to the ERF settlement. And they had some out and out misstatements. For instance, they have been trying to get Montara and Granada to extend a 2017 stipulation and order, which ended in 2018. And in their staff report, they say it has Montara has simply chosen not to go along with it in this instance, when in fact they've been voting under protest since 2018, but for some reason they are bound and determined to have Montara sign some kind of stipulation and order, and Montara can't see any reason to do so. For those who have read our agenda, the oral arguments on the lawsuit by Half Moon Bay against Montara and Granada will be October 5th, and we're going to post that so people can tune into it. so they say, for instance, in their staff report, Grenada and Montara have chosen to no longer recognize the stipulation and order. In fact, it had expired. They write that SAM staff was prepared to proceed with the project absent a budget amendment, which is true. The city deferral should not impact the award nor affect the delivery of the project. It's going to create some budgetary issues for SAM because we don't have the complete sum of money. We had planned on just doing it on a cash flow basis, but both Half Moon Bay and Grenada were bound and determined that we would have this budget amendment. So I found it fascinating that they had forgotten to include this. And so they, in essence, chose not to fund the pump station, which is life-threatening. There was some thought 10 or 15 years ago that it puts enormous amounts of salt into the system from the tide because it's under the saltwater level. And so it would be better for the SAM plant if we didn't have that salt going in. The staff is able to cope with it, and that's good. But one of the problems we have is that since the lawsuit was filed in 2017, we've made fits and starts at capital improvement projects and plans, but we don't have a real CIP. We don't have it funded. And every time Half Moon Bay or somebody else slows down a project, they seem to forget that inflation and supply chain problems are going to add to the costs. And so the costs will go up. That's a given. And that technology gets more expensive, and the demand from the regulatory agencies for certain forms of technology are also loaded on. And so those get more expensive. So we need to get this project done. We need to get it done by June 30th of 2024. And it's going to take a full 9 months. Half Moon Bay, from what I have heard, wants to wait until after the decision from the appeals court. The meeting there will be discussion on this on the SAM board meeting Monday night. Please sign in, please attend, please pay attention. And there will also be a finance committee meeting. I don't know, Keishan, is it at 3:30 or 6 on Monday?
It's at 6 on Monday.
It's at 6 on Monday. So there will be further in-depth discussion at the finance committee meeting, but it will be on the SAM board agenda, and it's a critical project. So please pay attention and come.
Okay, we can go around. Peter, did you have anything?
Yeah, Kishan, when you put that new pocket Princeton pump station in place, one of the suggestions made in the CIP suggestions over the years was that there is a bypass so as to be able to function when the actual station needs to be repaired or needs to be fixed in some way so that you have an ability to go in there and use the bypass. Is that bypass, the amount of money that the bypass costs, is that included in the project of 2.5 million?
Yes, that is included in the design. And the other best part of this package is a package pump station, which means the pumps are actually below depth or submerged. So operators do not need to go inside to do any maintenance on the pumps. There are rails, and the pumps can be pulled out just from the ground level. The operators don't have to go there. So that's the best part of the package pump station.
So you're saying the bypass is no longer needed because of the design of the pump station?
Yes, but still we are making provision just in case something needs to be done or any pipe needs to be fixed, because we have a surge tank also in the line. if that needs any maintenance to be done, we will have certain bypass provided.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, Bill.
Just one thing to add to Catherine's points. Every time I hear that Half Moon Bay has said something obviously untrue or misrepresenting, more than having that stored in a video record which few people look at, I want our attorneys to have a list of every single public false statement, all of them in one place, easily recognizable, easily indexed, maybe into the video, because at some point, 5 or 10 years from now, there will be some legal decision which decides to divorce us from a dysfunctional marriage. And the more evidence we have on the dysfunctionality historically, the faster and easier and cheaper that will go.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Keishan, I found the thing I was wondering about on this expenditure or increased budget that we're going to vote on. It says it caught my eye because it said it increased by 224%. And it's listed as professional memberships, and the previous years were 11,000, 15,000, 13,000, and now 49,000. Could you just explain what the big increase is?
That is not a part of the budget amendment. That is actually the original budget itself, which we have indicated. There's a minor change in the line item, which is professional membership. That is the 35,000, which Clemens explained for the ERF. That goes into the professional membership. Otherwise, everything else is just as it was approved earlier in June, July.
Okay, so that's where ERF is. Thank you.
Right, in the professional membership fees.
Yes.
Because what happens is 15,000 goes as a contribution to Rose Foundation, and 20,000 goes towards compliance monitoring and reimbursement of ERF fees.
And so they were simply put in memberships as a way of accounting for it, but they were part of the ERF settlement. Okay. It was not voluntary.
Didn't think so. Okay,
I'm gonna offer some comment now. I'm just gonna be really simple. Half Moon Bay has interfered with, delayed, stalled many projects. Every single one of them is put forward because of engineering judgment that it's needed. When they finally get to where we can do something about it, our costs have gone up. So people of Grenada, Princeton, Moss Beach, Montara, Half Moon Bay is increasing your costs for no good reason. They're increasing your costs. They're delaying the projects that are necessary, that there's good engineering judgment that these are necessary. And Half Moon Bay, unwilling to tell anyone why they're doing this, consistently, repeatedly, ceaselessly interferes with these projects. They delay them, and when it's time to do them, they cost a lot more money. Now, Half Moon Bay wants to tell you that they're concerned about cost, but every one of their interference actions has added substantial cost. We're seeing costs doubling or worse, and we're talking about big money projects. So this is not hitting us with 10,000 here, 20,000 there. The $35,000 that it costs to deal with ERF is what it took to take someone who has successfully sued SAM over a failure of a system that we could have had repaired had Half Moon Bay not delayed the repair. This is a little bit of cost to the suing party. It's not achieving anything for the agency. But that's not the big cost. The big cost is the cost of the delay, the exposure of having a system that needs the work, and the increased costs that come just from waiting. All the costs over. I've been doing this now for a long time, and I promise you, any project that you put up today will have an estimate, a really good estimate for one price. And if you wait 5 years, I promise you it will be 2 times as much if we're lucky. And we're seeing this repeated pattern. Half Moon Bay is running up the costs for everyone on the coast side. And for the people of Half Moon Bay, I'm looking at you. You can call or go see your city council representatives and ask them, what are they doing running up the cost and increasing the risk for everyone on the coast side? What purpose could they possibly be trying to achieve, whose only net result so far has been a big loss in court? They're rolling the dice again, hoping for lucky 7 or something, but they're running up the cost for everybody. And they say they're doing it in the name of cost, but they're running up your cost too. And they're going to keep doing this until the people of Half Moon Bay demand to know why they're doing it and call them to account for this reckless, irresponsible, reprehensible, obstructionist behavior that is costing everyone and increasing risk to health and safety in the environment. So with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Keishan. Thank you for being here, Tim. You have our full support. And we really appreciate the work that you and the crew do. And we're going to keep working to get you the things you need to do the job well.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well,
Can I say one thing?
go ahead, Sid.
Keishan's still there, and I know Clemens is still here. You guys have put up with a lot because you always have to go back to the drawing board and re-estimate things because of the delays. So I definitely would not like to be in your shoes, but I appreciate your patience and professionalism. Thank you very much.
You're here. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on to reports. Sewer Authority Midcoast side. Anything going on there?
No, I don't think I will go any further than that. But I will invite people to please watch. I will say that as chair of the Sewer Authority, what my goal for the remainder of my chairship is to have us working towards a good, solid, concise capital improvement program. We may not have the perfect numbers, but we do need to at least set our priorities. To a certain extent, the lawsuit has forced past priorities up to the front. But to be real honest, when we had Dan Child and as a consultant doing an exam of the SAM plan, and we've gotten a lot of the projects done. There's still tens of millions of dollars of projects that need to go on and get done just to keep it running. And something I'd like to see in the future is a real serious consideration by the community as to whether we want to keep the sand plant there or not. It's going to cost a lot of money in the future, and maybe we need to be looking at alternatives. And I'd love for the community to get involved on this. Like I say, we have things like the Princeton Pump Station and the Montara Force Main, things that have to be done. But in the long run, we need to be looking at the hazardous situation we live in and trying to make a system that is engineered with those in mind rather than something from the 19th century.
Okay. Yes.
Since Catherine just said that we need to start looking at long-term alternatives, since Sid pointed out that someone at your special districts meeting had an award for treating sewage so well they could pump it back into the groundwater, and since I saw that award being presented at the Aqua Conference and was thinking, wow, if Orange County can treat their sewage that well, modern technology has improved, and I would love to know whether it is in spitting distance of something which could be useful to us. So I would hope in whatever mechanisms that happens that we can start looking into using whatever technology Orange County used to maybe solve our own problems.
Thank you.
Sid?
I forgot what I was going
All
to
right.
say. I'm sorry.
Let's go into the Mid-Coast Community Council report. Greg?
Hi. There are three major things I think to mention. The easy one is the damage to Montara Mountain, which I think some of you are aware of from early June. I don't know that the district cares. I believe, Clemens, you said it may not be in your watershed, but we have concerns that what they've done is excessive, it's damaged a lot of vegetation, is going to cause erosion. So we're going to be covering that on a special meeting on September 20th. We're working a lot on the Cypress Point Environmental Impact Report. There are a bunch of things that are being claimed in that EIR that I hope your district will look at and comment on. I believe they are invalid statements. And I think your response to what your district has to do to create the infrastructure necessary to service and fire protect that new dense housing development is going to be important feedback. It also has financial implications for the district. And you've heard me talk about, how donating assets is donating a burden to the rest of the ratepayers. So I hope you will look at it. We right now are in the middle of a 24-page document. It's probably going to be 40 pages of comments and pretty extensive. One thing I note is that they're relying on a 2017 master plan for Montara. Most other water and sanitary agencies have 5-year recurring master plans. So one of my questions is going to be about the validity of the numbers they're relying on, which are now 6 years out of date. On a related issue, one of the things they're doing at that development is creating about 150,000 square feet of impermeable surface. Probably going to go up from that if they add the correct amount of parking. They've intentionally understated the amount of parking, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the way they're going to handle it is with what they call retention ponds, which aren't really ponds. It's just green infrastructure around the margins of the parking facility and so forth. They're even putting in, what's that, plastic turf, synthetic turf instead of real turf in cases. And so my concern is that we're going to get a lot of runoff. And that when we design things around here, and you probably heard me talk about this before, we use a design storm that says you have to build for this storm. And the design storm is totally inadequate. It's not only out of date, it's a silly risk profile. It's like a 90% 10-year storm. We're already facing 100-year storms, and I believe your FEMA, that is your MWSD's FEMA application, cited storms up to 8 inches. So my concern about the stormwater was enhanced when I read a county study from 2020 where they did a simulation. And even though they understated the design storm, what they showed was this green infrastructure approach only reduces the runoff in the event of a large storm, a 100-year storm equivalent, by 3.2%. So to me, that means there's going to be a lot of extra runoff from this 150,000 square feet of space into Montara Creek. I don't know what that means for the district. It might be downstream of where you get the water. But it relates to my concerns about that project in that the county historically, and you've probably heard presentations on this, has done a terrible job of managing stormwater out here on the Mid-Coast. And this goes hand in glove. It's continuing more of the same. It's like, well, it's too expensive to do it right, so we're just going to build what we can and let everybody else take the risk. Mm-hmm. And I'm very concerned about it. So those are 3 things going on. Any questions for the MCC?
Well, I have one more.
Hold on. I'll call.
Thank you.
I wanted to actually start initially, Greg, the artificial turf. Do you know if that's planned to have crumbled tires as part of the product?
Kimberly Williams has written our response on that section, and I believe that's what she says.
Because if that's between the development and the creek, we need to be expressing concerns about contamination in the creek. That would be a pollutant.
I will send you. I'll send you a copy of what she wrote. Okay, to you and Clemens.
Catherine.
And the beach, because that's an estuary area. It's a nursery area in the tide pools that creek goes into. And so putting pollution into the estuary, it's a critical coastal area.
That's right.
And
mention that's what that term is.
The critical coastal
environmentally sensitive habitat, is that really registered as an environmentally sensitive habitat?
Area of special
Wait, one at a time,
biological
Catherine.
It is an ASBS, an area of special biological concern. It is an ESHA, and it is a critical coastal area. And the county knows it. And there was a study done. We held the reports and the study here 10, 15 years ago. And so it's on the maps. It is a critical coastal area.
Could I just clarifying? Is that's a Coastal Commission designation? Yes.
It is a coastal California designation. The other is that on the 23rd in the evening, there's going to be held at Supervisor Muller's office in Princeton, the Moss Beach Road Improvement Workshop. And I suggest everyone who's watching drag along a neighbor or two. It's going to be talking about roundabouts, and it's a good place to be talking about flooding and stormwater control. And also, although it's just about the Moss Beach, we need to be talking about, and I'll talk to Clemens about this, but we need to be saying SAM and MWSD have infrastructure under that, and it needs to be mapped and taken care of, and not made inaccessible or damaged by any of the construction that's going on. We've got some new pipelines in, and I hate to have the county forget about them. So please, folks, I think it starts at 6 o'clock in the evening on the 23rd. Head on down. You can always pick up dinner at the little Peruvian taqueria thing that's there, or other places.
Where are they headed?
It's going to be at
Harbor Village, Ray Mueller's office.
Village, Ray Mueller's office. Thank you. I forgot.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
No worries. And so I think it's a critical point. I noticed that they're only talking about Moss Beach. They're not talking about the problems we have in Montara and getting across the highway. And I don't know why they're piecemealing this. I think it has something to do with the affordable housing project and finding a way to slide in the fact that they've dealt with the traffic concerns.
All right, Sid.
Couple things. They also, Greg, is it going to be due on the 25th, the EIR, all the comments?
The process is we're going to present our draft, a messy draft, and please note that Kimberly's raising her hand so she can speak to this tire and stuff issue in a minute. But we're going to present a messy draft on the 20th and get direction on completing a second draft, which we're going to present. We're going to present a messy draft on the 13th, and then we're going to clean it up and have hopefully close to final report on the 20th to submit by the 25th, which is the deadline that Mike Schaller at planning has to get all EIR comments on Cypress Point from anyone.
Okay. So that's our deadline too, to get ours in. I would just like to make note of the fact that there were 2 accidents at Cypress and Highway 1 this weekend, and they promised us a roundabout way back when they approved the Big Wave project on Airport Street, and they still haven't done anything in the Moss Beach corridor except put in that sloppy crosswalk. And there's been a fatality there too, as we sadly all know. As far as emergency evacuation goes, I don't know how it's 142 car parking spaces, but at Cypress Point, but I don't know how they're going to all get in and out of there. There's only one way out and one way in. So the fact that there's no emergency evacuation plan countywide is very scary to me. but Lake County was trying to put in a great big fancy resort in the area that's prone to wildfire, and the judge put it down. They ruled against Gannok, which was, I think, a year ago in January, and they had to go back to the drawing board because they had inadequate evacuation. So I think that's something you really should highlight, Greg, when you get your thing going. And I did remember what I wanted to say about Sam, and that is I just wish that we could be able to manage our day-to-day stress-free and not always have to run to a problem. I think that would be my goal for Sam. Anyway, thanks. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you. Kimberly's hand was up. Kimberly, did you still want to say anything?
Scott, I'm happy to follow up with you separately just about the turf thing, because I don't believe that they actually specify the kind of, what kind of synthetic turf it is, what the components are. But I can follow up with you on that.
Okay. Catherine?
And I am looking at I looked up critical coastal area California and the maps and the data for Moss Beach, and all the critical coastal areas in the state are on the Coastal Commission site. And so it is a major water quality concern.
So one of the things that I started reading, one of the appendixes, and they only referred to Montara Creek as an ephemeral water course. They didn't even mention that it's a major creek that goes through Montara.
That's actually an error.
I know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where they're getting their information, or if they did it intentionally so they could just kind of wash off the fact that that's a major element flowing right into the marine reserve. But I saw it and my blood pressure went up. Okay. All
right. Well, I appreciate everyone's attention to the matter and the diligence. Thank you to those of you on the Mid-Coast Community Council. You're attending to some really good work. And let me just mention, it's not that we don't care about what's going on with Montara Mountain. It may just be a little bit outside our purview, but I promise you, all of us here care about what's happening to that mountain when people are abusing it and wreaking havoc with what's up there. So thank you for taking that up at the council. Clemens?
I just want to mention that Montara Water and Sanitary District has stream gauging information about Montara Creek. I think just throwing this out there, some of that information was published, so the current stream gauge is upstream, but a long time ago we actually also physically measured the creek mouth. I can't tell you how long ago that was, but there's some historical information about the flow in Montara Creek available. Just want to state that is of interest.
Catherine?
To Kimberly and Greg, you may want to get a hold of Balanced Hydrologics in Berkeley. They have stream gauging up and down the coast, and they're the ones who did the Montara Creek gauging, and they can probably give you all kinds of critical scientific information. Mark Weichner and Barry Heck have information. Actually, it's all Barry's fault that I'm sitting here, because they did a study on septic systems back in the 1980s that I read and got totally appalled at what the county was choosing to ignore. And it was an EIR that had been done for the county. So please use my name, use Montara's name. They know us all too well, and they will probably be more than happy to give you valid scientific reference, undisputable scientific references.
All right, let's.
One more
last
thing.
comment and let's wrap it up.
Kimberly, I know you're on Surfrider, but you probably know that they do water sampling along the San Mateo County coast for the San Mateo County environmental quality. I forget which entity at the county does it, but they publish all the samples, and they do not sample Montara Creek. But I don't know if it would be worth it to try to push to get that sampling in down at the mouth of the creek, just below the lighthouse, because then we would have something to gauge if and when this ever gets built and they start discharging their stormwater into the creek, and including AstroTurf and all the runoff, etc. So,
all right, Michelle.
Can she?
Michelle.
I think you're.
Yes, it's sort of a little esoteric, but Noah Katz for RCD, he was in a meeting and he was saying that he did not know how to get down to the place on Montara Creek to do the proper testing. Clemens, I'll do an email introduction if you would like.
I know, Noah.
Yeah. He said that he was having a hard time finding a testing spot in Montara Creek.
I can show him the testing spot. It's perfect because it was an old structure. The water runs over a wall. We can just take a bucket and literally measure the flow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have to go?
I'll leave it in your hands.
Let's move on now. Catherine, do you have anything on CSDA or LAFCO?
We had the CSDA meeting, and there hasn't been a LAFCO. We had the CSDA conference event. There hasn't been a local meeting, and nor the next LAFCO meeting is next month.
Okay, Christine, do you have anything for the report?
If I can throw in one little bit of news.
Okay.
Coastal Commission approved the replenishment of sand at Surfers Beach, and that's with dredging from the harbor and putting it on Surfers Beach. So that project, which has been needed for 50 years, is finally going to get going.
50?
50. Ever since the breakwater went in and they created and I'll tell you about the history later, but they created the Marine Reserve, and they said you couldn't take sand from one place and put it in another. And that's been changed. And so we're going to be replenishing and doing some stormwater protection and erosion protection at Surfers Beach.
Clemens?
Is this when is this going to start? And is this a one-time process, or is this speaking as a member of the Harbor District, we see it as an ongoing project. And it's going to start as soon as we deal with the eelgrass replenishment.
Okay. All right, Christine, anything for the attorney's report?
No attorney's report.
All right, any director's reports? Not seeing any. General manager's report. Anything to add to your staff report?
Not really to report, but I'm going to take this opportunity to remind the board to bring on Saturday their name tags, if possible, if you can find them. I mentioned at the last meeting that we needed some volunteer time from the board members, and Sid and Bill are taking over all of this. So we have both of them spent the whole day with us, which means that the rest of the board can just show up at 1:00 to the party and enjoy it.
Okay, I'll talk to you afterwards.
Yes, we need to talk about it briefly. Yes.
Okay. Sid?
Just on that really quick, I did put a notice out on Nextdoor to remind people about it, because I know you sent out that beautiful postcard, etc. But I just want to thank the staff for all their hard work getting this done. So I know I wasn't here for the last special events meeting, and they've still been working on it.
All right.
So, yay.
Did I read correctly, Clemens, that there is free food?
Yes. Yeah, we have food.
Did you say free food?
Yeah. Oh, well,
Yes.
then we should come.
That's right.
Tell your friends.
We should have put that big on the post.
So free food.
It was in the Apple Bay Review.
Okay.
I didn't see it either.
Show up here.
It was a
Show up here.
large article.
Show up here at the district office at 1 p.m. on Saturday. And what I heard was there's free food, among other things.
And swag.
And where are we going to direct parking?
that's handled by
We'll,
them.
we'll just show up and
Okay.
it'll all be
It will
fine.
be taken care of. Yes.
Yep. Okay, terrific. Let's go then. Anything for future agendas? No. We are going to end the public session. We're going to reconvene after a short break in closed session.
We have actually Tim's hand is up.
Tim's hand is up. Oh, hi, Tim. What would you like to throw in here, Tim?
I just wanted to say real quick before you guys go into closed session that staff and everyone at SAM, we appreciate your continued support, and we will see you Saturday.
Look forward to seeing you then.
Right.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
All right, we're in closed session. We're going to, let's see, we've got existing litigation. Any guesses about which one? Yes, it's the city of Half Moon Bay versus the coast side.
Everybody.
We're also going to have a couple of potential cases of anticipated litigation. We're going to talk about public employee performance evaluation in conference with labor negotiators with respect to our general manager. And if we take any action in closed session that's reportable, we will report it after we come out of closed session. With that, thank you all for being here, especially members of the public. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you, Tanya and staff. Thank you, Michelle, as always, for being here. And with that, we are in recess, and we will close the public viewing.
I'll see you on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I found my 50th